The season review is brought to you and supported by Saltire Energy, the global market leader in specialist drilling equipment rental, and also by Craig International, a truly global company with 10 offices strategically placed around the world. The future of global procurement is right here. Hi everybody, a very warm welcome to Ali Beg ABTV here on YouTube. This is the season review for campaign 2023-24. I was delighted to have been joined by three huge Aberdeen fans. Richard Wilkinson, owner of Beat 106 in Scotland, and a former admin of a hugely popular Dons page on Facebook. I was also joined by Terry McDermott, who once used to work at the football club and has now found fame in America as lead singer of Lotus Crush, and he also came very close to winning the US version of The Voice. As well as Richard and Terry, I was also delighted to have joined by former Aberdeen women's team captain Loren Campbell. We discussed so much: our European campaign, the knock-on effect it had domestically, Neil Warnock, the board, Peter leaving, and the disappointment of the League Cup final. As well as that, we threw in some quick-fire questions as well. So I really hope you enjoy the show. Let's get on with it, and let me introduce the guys to you. Hi guys, thank you so much for jumping on. So just let me very quickly do the introductions. So over here is Richard Wilkinson, huge Dons fan, welcome. Down there is Terry McDermott, huge Dons fan. And down here is Loren Campbell. She used to play professional football for Aberdeen ladies team. Guys, thank you so much for coming. It's lovely to see you all. Loren, I'm going to jump straight in and I'm going to fire in with you first of all. So, I'd like to start by talking about our domestic form after our European games. Now, we only picked up 3 points from 7 league games, and we also lost the League Cup final to Rangers directly after European games. What do you think was the issue?
For me, to be honest, it was probably a bit of naivety of squad depth, if is my opinion as a player. I think the new European was coming, like for the season, and I don't think the squad was big enough for it, And I think the performances were quite good in Europe, but obviously it wasn't wins. So then it's hard to get momentum, isn't it, if that's breaking up between domestic games. So for me, yeah, just a wee bit lack of planning, which is harsh to say to the club, but you see the people that do well in Europe are the big teams with the big squads, and I think they just needed a couple of more even midfielders. Do you know what I mean? For then the rotation for the games then afterwards domestically, in my opinion, is maybe where it went a wee bit wrong.
Richard, I have to say, I wholeheartedly agree with Loren. I always felt, and I'm sure that we're not alone, that the squad simply was just not good enough to be able to cope with playing domestic football after European games.
Not good enough, I think, is probably near where I would be, as opposed to not deep enough. I think there were numbers there. We had more in that sort of squad, I think, of capable players, but did we have enough in the right positions? I think that Barry's stubbornness in terms of rotation was the number one reason for me why it didn't work. And I think hindsight being the wonderful thing, not rotating, not having, it feels very McInnes-esque to say not a plan B, stubbornness in the players that he was using. And, it just, bless him. And, we still go back to the loving the end of the 2022-2023 season run. But I think, unfortunately, he was found out as that wasn't the right sort of, wasn't the right decision to have an inexperienced manager trying to not just cope with domestic form or, a domestic sort of, a run of games, but domestic and European, which, was the first time in years that we'd had that. So, hindsight being the wonderful thing that it is, I don't know. I think, it's difficult to say. I think just, the players were there, and I think we've seen latterly since Peter leaving, and I'm sure we'll come to that in a bit. The players were there, the quality was there, they just weren't being utilized and performing the best that they could.
Terry, I've got to admit, I obviously delighted to get European football no matter what, but I have to say I was frustrated that we did not make the Europa League because again we failed at the qualifying stages. Look, it was great to get conference, delighted about that, but I've got to be honest. There was a part of me, I was frustrated that we didn't make it into the Europa League again. What was your opinion of it all?
I think to some degree there was a naivety about the way we played. For instance, getting knocked out and ending up in the Conference League against a team that you could argue, apart from, was it Siddiqui, the player?
Yeah.
I mean, he really was the difference. But they kind of played us like a fiddle. They drew us in and exposed the holes. But I think a larger point with regards to European football for me is that I think, Ali, I think you and I spoke about this actually after we qualified for Europe, which is there was examples in the past. There's a very clear example, which was Hearts qualified for Europe the season before, and they had a run at it. And the big thing we said in the summer after we qualified was, look at the problems Hearts had with squad depth. Look at the problems they had competing on two fronts and being able to manage injuries and obviously the stress on players, etc. Whatever it is, whether it's the mentality. I mean, we all got tired of hearing how tired the players were after a European game. But Hearts had exactly the same problem. And for me, that was the frustration. This was not a shot out at blue. This was not a massive surprise. We knew it was going to be heavier demands. And we also saw that Hearts, for example, their league form suffered pretty badly by having to compete in Europe as well. And it just, I guess what bothers me is it panned out exactly that way for us. There was no surprises. We weren't capable of competing on two fronts. You could argue that Barry Robson's tactics were somewhat intractable, but in certain games, it really did get results. But as we know, if you gave us the football, we could have played for 80 minutes with the ball and not really got anywhere. But in those backs to the wall performances, it worked. But ultimately, we did not have the plan B. We did not have the option to change up the way we were playing and compete on two fronts. And like I say, this was nothing new. We saw Hearts struggle to it, and we didn't prepare adequately, whether that's because we couldn't get the players we wanted or because we simply didn't envisage the size of the task. The end result is the same, which is, we signed Leighton Clarkson, for example. I thought, this is great. That's a real benchmark signing. It shows what we're going for. But after that, I don't really think we hit the heights in terms of recruitment that we looked for. And I think that showed in the coming months.
Loren, overall, how do you think that we did in Europe? For me personally, I think it was a missed opportunity.
Yeah, I think like you said, getting to Europe and the performances were good, but not being able to drop into conference was a massive blow, wasn't it? I know people that went away and went to the European Games said it was very enjoyable. It was a good experience, but yeah, I think, overall it's just a wee bit of a miss, isn't it? And it would have been more money. It would have helped for this season, especially finishing bottom six. That would have been, bank more money for that as well. But overall, I think it was excitement to be there, but then that naivety of maybe not taking the opportunity to do as well in it is maybe something hopefully the club learns from going forward.
Overall, Richard, how would you assess our campaign in the Conference League?
Oh, listen, it wasn't what I was hoping for. I think I find myself, my thoughts of like happy clappers, like sort of reasoned realists, chronic curmudgeons. I find myself being more in the kind of uplifted, whilst it wasn't what we expected, I take on board, everybody's points of just kind of going, this should have been the start of successive campaigns in Europe. That's the frustrating part for me of going, we've only, it's a wasted opportunity to kind of go, okay, we should have learned what we needed to learn in terms of being able to deal with the stresses and strains of multiple games and what have you, and put that into practice next season to be even better. We don't have that. And that's what I think is the missed opportunity for me of going, okay, being somewhat of a reasoned realist of kind of going, we had opportunities, but I think our expectations were kind of going, we're just happy to be still playing in Europe up until Christmas. If we could have got past Christmas, I think it would have been not miraculous, but there were the opportunities there. We didn't get the chance. I have to disagree. I think Europa Conference League is where we should have been. I think I agree with you. We missed an opportunity, but we were where we should have been. And for me, that level of expectation to kind of go, we had European after Christmas. Anything else was an absolute bonus. But for me, the frustration is going, okay, we made mistakes. We didn't play it particularly well. We should have been putting that experience into next season, and we don't have it.
Terry, when we look at our domestic form, I must admit, I still sometimes scratch my head at how Barry was able to get us to finish third in the latter part of last season, have us playing good, attacking, attractive football. Yet, at the beginning of this season, it was the complete opposite. I still scratch my head at that. What happened?
I could not agree more. And this is a talking point I've heard Don's fans make on many occasions, is that Barry managed to salvage what was a flailing campaign and put us in third, which was quite an achievement considering what was going on. But how many goals that season did Leighton Clarkson contribute by being the kind of player that can get in around in the gap between the centre halves and the midfield, he can get into that hole, he can cause problems, he can shoot. He was a handful, and I was absolutely gobsmacked when Robson came out and said that he's not an attacking midfielder, he's more of a number 6. I mean, Leighton's a very talented player, but for me that was a mindset that ended up creating a pattern, which was he kind of devolved into this type of football, which was more about soaking up and hitting on the break. And let's not forget, it was hitting on the break with a team that didn't really have any recognisable width. So for me, it was a very strange approach. I thought it was regressive. I didn't think it used the talent we had in the team. And I don't care what anyone says, Leighton Clarkson is not a number 6. He's and we've seen that Peter Leben actually taking the shackles off him. I think he actually used that expression. He's taken the shackles off him and told him to shoot, to get forward and shoot. And that for me is the excitement of a few of our players, that they can offer that. They can offer that X factor. Duke's an example. Majowski's an example. And we had these resources, and I really can't help but reflect on the season gone and think that they were just being used wrong. It's that simple.
Loren, again, when it came to sort of round about the Christmas and the New Year period, I was thinking to myself, he's a dead man walking. We all knew he was a dead man walking. And there's a part of me that actually admired the board for sort of trying to give him the time to get it right. But I always felt he's not going to get it right. If he's not got it right now, he never will. So do you think sacking him at the end of January was just prolonging the situation that we found ourselves in? Should he have been sacked before?
I mean, hindsight's a wonderful thing, isn't it? But yeah, probably, isn't it? But I think maybe with the club as well, obviously, like we spoke about the end of the season before, where he really, really did earn the right to have a chance. And I think it was maybe that it was like heartfelt that all the fans wanted him in. So I think it was more hanging out because they wanted him to resolve it, which is hope, isn't it, in football? But it's not always, like you say, the best case. So yeah, I probably agree with yourself. They left it like not too late, because yeah, maybe it is because they didn't make the top 6, and that could have maybe been achieved. But yeah, I agree with you. They hung on, but folks' hearts, they wanted them to do well. So I think it's one of those. It's hard to please and let go of somebody that you actually believe could have done something.
Lauren, I hope you don't mind me asking, but when you're in a dressing room and you're in a situation like that as a player, does it play on your mind at all?
Yeah, I think so. I think it's I've been in a situation like that where it's not gone well, and it's a negative environment to be in. But it's like any dressing room. Certain players react to certain managers better, don't they? It's like the Clarkson thing you just spoke about. You mean he was flying at the end of last season? They changed his position, so negatively, if someone isn't playing well, then can go through the changing room. So I suppose that would have been the knock-on effect as well. And yeah, like Terry said, like you look at Clarkson now, the end of this season, the semi-final against Celtic, playing in the 10, he's superb. So yeah, it's maybe Robson's tried to come with a philosophy and stick to it, and he's tried to stick to his guns a bit too much without maybe at the end he maybe could have opened up and risked something else that might have saved them. But yeah, it does start to feed through the dressing room, and the longer it drags on, the harder it is. And as a player, every time you get a new manager and you get a reaction. So yeah, with that reaction being a couple of months before that, and yeah, but at the time, I think Levin said he wasn't really wanting the full-time job as well. So I don't know if this takes effect. I know he came in and he's done very well as an interim, and he wants to be interim and then go back to his job. So maybe because the fact nobody was jumping at the bit to then take on Robson for the time period as well, I don't know if that all has a roll-on effect and behind the scenes at the club.
Hey, Richard, I've got 2 words for you.
Do you now?
Neil Warnock.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure that'll be number of pub quiz questions in the future. What was it he said? No, it was what Craig Levine said. It's a bit of a laugh, isn't it? Well, I don't know who the laugh was on, but the Neil Warnock experiment clearly didn't work. I mean, it was certainly he went out, in a pleasant bang with the win against Kilmarnock in the cup. That was a really entertaining, fun game to watch. And who's to say that, what might have been, given that he seemed to have finally sort of kind of figured out what the sort of the magic potion was, or whatever a lesson learned, I think, for our football monitoring board, that perhaps that wasn't the best way forward. And as we've since discovered, giving Peter leaving the job in the first instance, and even for a temporary situation to get the right guy, perhaps would have been the better option. But hey ho! I just want can I come back on what you were talking before? I know you want to talk about Warnock, but I absolutely take on board what Terry was saying about Leighton Clarkson. But for me, the bigger issue was Ramadani, McCrory, and Pollock weren't replaced, and that's why, in terms of leaking goals, and for me, Miovski, when supplied, has perhaps didn't have as prolific a season this season as last season, but in terms of our defense, those 3 players were absolutely instrumental in how great we were in that final half of the previous season, and the quality just wasn't replaced. But anyway, Neil Warnock, yeah.
Terry, I've got to be honest. I fully understood the principles behind the thinking, and I got it. We all got it. But I have to say, for me, it was just a car crash, and it was always going to be a car crash. And I could never understand why they would look at a guy, despite all the experience that he comes with, a chap who knows absolutely nothing about the DNA of our football club and knows nothing about the DNA of Scottish football. And I always just felt that he didn't take it seriously. And for me, alarm bells started to ring when he turns up for the first game against Rangers. He's talking about fan clubs, all his mates at Rangers fan clubs, and he turns up to Ibrox in a blue suit. Now, I'm sorry, but what was he thinking? For me, it was just a car crash from day one.
Yeah, I was going to say he was a square peg in a round hole, but he was more like a hexagonal peg in a round hole. He had many more edges and more than a few extra sides because, I don't think you're wrong in what you're saying. I think if you look at the decision they made, you could argue, if you want to play devil's advocate, you could say that Warnock had a track record of coming to clubs that were maybe struggling, and result, not always an immediate result. I think it should be pointed out as well, which is he could go through a number of games where he sussed out the team. And I think there's a statistic somewhere where in the seasons where he really did have an effect on clubs he went to, he would usually go on a string of defeats before turning it around. But yeah, his basic demeanor I mean, he obviously, if I think it's fair to say that if he was chocolate, he would have eaten himself by now. Um, he obviously thinks his character is bigger than any one football club. And I just don't, yeah, I don't think that fit with what we needed. And it really, somebody should have just had a quiet word when he walked in the door and said, "Hey, don't talk favorably about Rangers, please, because you'll just set the fans off." And for good reason. We don't need that. We don't want that. We want him completely immersed in what we're trying to do as a football club. And I think you're right. I think he thought he would basically just pop up on a jolly. You know, he said he's got a holiday home or he spends a lot of time in Scotland. I thought he's maybe going to pop up on a jolly, just come into our little league, knock out a string of wins, and go home with a pat on the back. But obviously, it proved to not be the case. And I think there might be an element of truth in what you said, that maybe he did not understand the gravity of the task.
Loren, for you, purely from a football point of view, I was hoping that he would come in and he would settle us, and he would settle a ship, a very rocky ship. For me, he just made it 10 times worse. So purely from a football point of view, where is your opinion at?
Yeah, totally. Like when he was announced, I was like quite impressed, to be honest, because he is a big name. He's come from English football, but I've spoke to a few like of my mates and stuff, and I don't understand why he came. Like from his perspective, I know he said he hadn't managed in Scottish football and all that, but he surely did have to come all the way to Aberdeen for. I don't know if he needed, like why he needed to do that. If that makes sense. It's like I think we'll wake up one day and like remember that time Loren was there for a few months. Like it's going to be like that. I think it's crazy, but yeah, like you say, eventually he got a good win against Kilmarnock, but it's a game he already knows he's leaving, so I suppose the pressure's off. He can do what he wants, but I think there's a lot of negativity from that Neil Warnock period. But I think the only positive, in my opinion, was Hoylett. I think he's actually come quite good. Whether we can keep him or not, I know as much as we spoke badly of that situation, I think that's maybe the only sort of spark or shining moment that comes out of it.
Can I just add, Ali, that one of my favourite things was when Warnock signed, the day he signed, some super sleuth at Aberdeen Airport took the little video of him dragging a suitcase, just a little clip, and he says, "Oh, Warnock's here," and then the day he left, they played the clip backwards. Warnock. And it's like, yeah, I'm glad he only brought the little suitcase for 33 days. So.
And the latest one that's doing the round is somebody has imposed Yumi Taleed's head on Neil Warnock.
Yeah.
Richard, one thing that I really hope for going forward, and I say this with my tongue placed firmly in my cheek, I really hope that if we do go through tough periods again this season, that the chairman and the chief executive officer are singing from the same hymn sheet when it comes to putting out statements.
I mean, I think anybody who's seen me before knows my disdain for the Football Monitoring Board and their so-called
easy tiger.
Just I know. But things haven't been right at the top of the club for a while, and I think our chairman hasn't done himself any favors, I think, with a lot of the fan base. This is me speaking politically. A lot of the fan base this season by saying things that maybe weren't a reflection on the reality of the situation. Does that pass the legal editor?
Yeah, I thought you did quite well there. I have to say that can remain.
I think how that all works, with our CEO, with our chairman, with our director of football, with our supposedly, additional requirements that we need from our review, I hope they get that sorted, and I hope they get that sorted behind the scenes, and we can just focus on our new manager coming. And I've heard you now with a completely different pronunciation than anyone I've heard before. So if that's Jimmy or whatever, I hope he comes in and the main focus is going, this is what we're talking about. What a great manager we have, what great tactics, what great players we've signed, what great football we're playing. And I hope we don't have to see or hear another statement or a press release from our chairman for a very long time, particularly about any managerial changes moving forward. But yeah, I think that's been another not great part of our season at all.
Okay, let's turn it back to being more positive, Terry. So Peter obviously was asked to come back in after they were unable to find a full-time manager during the international break. So he was asked to step in again, and I have to say I absolutely tip my hat to the guy, because I think he's done an unbelievable job in extremely difficult and harrowing circumstances, I think. And considering that he also had a bit of a health scare towards the end of the season as well, I just think goes to show the character of this guy and how lucky we are to have him. I absolutely bow to him because I think he's done a phenomenal job.
Well, I think what's quite incredible is that he literally and figuratively did the job that Neil Warnock was asked to come in and do.
Yeah, yeah.
And he did it without any of the fanfare, talking about Rangers, his holiday home in Scotland, or how easy it was going to be. He basically just came in, grabbed the team, organised the talents we have into what appears to be a far more useful application of their talents. And basically, I liked that a lot of the phrases that he was using in the interviews, where he said, I just took the shackles off some of the players, had them go and do what they're good at. He kind of made it sound simple. That this guy's good at this, so I let him do it. And I think that was part of the mystery of Robson and Warnock was why that wasn't happening. So absolutely, massive respect to Peter leaving. And you have to say that if I know this is dangerous territory, but if Jimmy Thielen, am I getting that right?
Very good, very good.
Because I've been practicing my speech. If he had not been coming, you do have to wonder if Peter leaving would have been in with a shout, because he seems to have really grabbed the club, the squad, by the scruff of the neck, and I like listening to him talk about football.
Loren, I have to say, I'm absolutely delighted that he's going to be part of Jimmy's coaching staff going forward. It's the least he deserves, I think. But overall, if we take the Dundee game out of the equation, the football from there on in, for me personally, was at times a joy to watch. And it was like, it's the type of football that I think we should be playing. And all of a sudden, I just felt there was a bit of a freedom to us more than anything else. Purely from a football point of view, did you see the progression?
Yeah, definitely. I think he just gets it, doesn't he? Like, he's from, I know like that sounds stupid, but he's been in the club, he's seen and he's around these players. Although he's wasn't manager before, he'll be around these players a lot. He'll be involved in training, and like you say, the shackles off and let people play football. So I think, like, when you get Warnocks to come in, don't know anything about your squad and you're trying to judge, and just in quite a short, he knew what was there, and he obviously had a vision, and he knew these boys could play a certain style of football. And I think, like, he obviously has good football knowledge and philosophy to make them play that, but he's identified who's brilliant in areas. So it's like, he's just good at his job, basically. I know that in football, but very impressed. I think they grew in confidence as well. I don't know what he's like in training, but he seemed in the press very calm, composed, backed his players, said the right thing. So I think when you're happy that a manager is good, you respect him, and he cares for you, I think you get a lot out of your team. So I think he built that relationship up, like, as well as having good football knowledge with a relationship, it just worked. And he's got them playing football. So hopefully, like you say, he is staying at the club, and that he gets to work with the new manager, so that it can only progress rather than go backwards or start from fresh. So yeah, very impressed with his short tenure.
Terry, how much are you looking forward to the new season already?
Well, last summer I was looking forward tremendously to this season, and I've learned my lesson. So, if I'm being completely honest, obviously I get that kind of teenage giddy optimism every year, because apparently Aberdeen fans don't learn. But there's every reason to be optimistic. This guy's track record is good. I don't think it's going to be the kind of free-flowing, all guns blazing football that maybe we'd like to see. But I think the realistic truth is that I think it's going to be more complicated than that. And I think there's going to be teething problems. I don't don't see him coming in and it just all clicking. I think the phrase that gets tossed around a lot is he's a club builder. Well, I hope he brought a blueprint because there's a lot to work on. I think we're going to have to go through him building this team into the shape he wants, and it's going to take time. So I think we're probably going to have to just brace ourselves for maybe it not being a spectacular start, and accept that if we do want an end result from him, it's going to take time to let him build the team that he wants.
Okay. Right, guys, I've got your quick fire questions for you, so I'll go around you individually. Richard, high of the season.
Rangers 1, Aberdeen 3.
Nice. Loren.
Same.
Terry.
Frankfurt, Aberdeen 2, Frankfurt 0.
Okay, I'm also going with the Rangers game. Richard, low of the season.
I've put down most of the 17th of December 2023 to the 2nd of March 2024. 1-4, drew 3, lost 7.
Yeah, okay. Loren?
Yeah, it's similar to Richard, but announcing safety from relegation, I think it's good, but it's a low point. It should be for an Aberdeen team, in my opinion.
Terry?
The cup final. We didn't lay a glove on them.
In fact, let's talk about that. Why didn't we lay a glove on them, Terry?
I think we were probably seeing the end result of as I said earlier, Barry Robson's intractable tactics in football, which is we were built to not lose as opposed to win. No real adventure in those games, and where we saw perhaps a little success in Europe with it, where obviously, in the Pout games, you could argue that we could have got more points than we did. There were symptoms of the way that he had the team playing, and I think all those chickens came home to roost in the Rangers game, because for all our efforts to stop them doing anything, we barely. Did we actually have a shot on target? I don't think we had a shot. No. Shots on target. So that speaks volumes. That for me was probably more embarrassing than anything else that went on in the season, because I think we take pride in trying to do amazing things in Scottish football, and the least we expect is, come on, trouble them, hit the target. So yeah, that was a real low point.
Hey, Richard, I have to admit, while I was watching the game, I couldn't quite believe what I was watching. And I found it almost criminal that we were playing the way that we were playing when Rangers were absolutely there for the taking. And I think if Barry had shown bravery, I think we would have done them. I must admit, after that game, usually after cup finals, the emotion is disappointment. After that cup final, I was seething, and I mean seething.
No, to be fair, I've tried to put most of it out of my mind because, like you, it was just, and in the space of a couple of months from Rangers 1, Aberdeen 3 to where, and admittedly in that game, I'm not, so it's kind of, we were 20, 25 minutes in the game that we won at Ibrox, we were up against it. They were punting the ball in and they had plenty of chances, and then somehow we managed to turn it around, turn it out the bag. Obviously, the red card helped us immensely. And yet, as you said, of going, how could we have gone from one sort of amazing performance to something so terrible and toothless in the space of a couple of months? And you can, the European schedule, blah blah blah, as we've discussed before, but no, as you said, criminal. Just such a non-performance in a cup final where it's 90 minutes or 120 minutes or 120 minutes plus effing penalties. Anything can happen. Have a go. And yeah, like you, just came out of it angry, really angry.
Do you know, Loren, I was gutted for the fans that day. These guys that make that sort of effort, and to be sort of served that on the football pitch, I think it was unforgivable. I got to be honest.
Yeah, it was a bizarre day, to be honest, from my perspective. And I work with a lot of really big Dons fans that went down to that cup final that day. And in respect didn't then go to the semi-final against Celtic because they were still seething from the Hampden experience of before, and then you put on a really, really good performance and it was a cracking game. So okay, you're not diehard Dons fans maybe, but like that knock-on effect. But I always remember from that day the comments that Robson said afterwards that Rangers were a very, very good team, and I don't know if we should be beating them. And it was just bizarre. I don't know what was going on that day, but yeah, so disappointing for the fans. And can only agree with like Richard. It's a cup final. Just go for it at some point. Even I don't know why you've not gone for it. Like in the last sort of 10, 15 minutes. But yeah, strange day.
Loren's comments there about what Barry Robson said has just triggered me. Just months of therapy trying to forget all that. But just when you said that, yeah.
Go to your happy place, mate. Go to your happy place.
I think the reality is when any Aberdeen team going to Glasgow and winning a cup final is obviously a massive thing, and the last 20 years illustrates how difficult it is. But we do expect, and we do have a benchmark where a team has to show heart. They have to show bravery in the face of insurmountable odds, which we're usually up against. And the idea that we can go down there timid, tepid, a degree of cowardice, whatever you want to call it, and just really no intent or ability to win the game, that is flatly unacceptable. I mean, I don't think that's an exaggeration. I think for Aberdeen Football Club to be in a cup final against Rangers with our history and I think the way that we want the club to be, that is simply unacceptable.
Yeah, completely agree. Right, guys, we've got 2 final quick-fire questions. We are going to finish the show on a positive. Richard, player of the season, dare I ask?
Player of the season has to be Bojan, but player of the half season is Junior Hoylett.
Okay. Loren?
Yeah, Miovski for me. Standout performer all the time.
Are we going to keep him?
So
You're shaking your head, Terry. You think he's Offski?
you can only hope.
Your player of the season?
It has to be Majowski, and unfortunately we've squandered the time we have with him because he's going to be gone. He's the best striker we've had since this guy.
Yeah.
And fortunately he's off.
Yeah, I think so too. He's also my player of the season. Goal of the season, Richard, to finish off.
Angus McDonald against Helsinki. It was the obvious choice. It was the clubs and the fans' choice of the season. What a goal! What a sweet spot! Oh, just could watch that on repeat forever and ever.
Loren?
I actually voted for Miovski against Celtic at Pittodrie. That as a footballer, I just think I think Angus McDonald's a one-hit wonder. It's fabulous, but as a footballer, he picks it up and he has no right to score, and he saunters through and pops it in. So I quite like that goal. Personally.
Yeah, it was a great goal. Terry, for you?
I think Lauren's right. I think that was probably the goal I would have picked, but I'll pick a different one and say that it was the sheer disbelief when Sockler scored against Frankfurt, where I'm looking around my front room like, did that just happen? Did that happen? And I think I was texting you at the time, and I don't think either of us quite believe what we're watching. So for me, it was that moment. It's like, God, this is a shit season, but that's great.
Yeah, I have to be honest. I also voted for Angus McDonald's goal against Helsinki, but I have to say, purely for an emotional point of view, and I'm going to confess this, I nearly started greeting when we scored our equaliser in the last minute of extra time against Celtic in the semi-final. Oh my God, what a moment that was. If I could have my time again, I might choose that one.
Yeah, brilliant.
Guys, listen, thank you so much for coming on. It's been absolutely fantastic having you all here. I hope you've really enjoyed the show. Take good care of yourselves. Enjoy your summer, and we'll see you all again very soon.
Let's hope so. Have a great summer, dandies. Stand free.
Thanks,
Cheers,
mate.
guys.
Thanks, guys. My thanks to Loren, to Richard, and to Terry. Guys, if you enjoyed today's show, I'd be very grateful if you would press the like button, and if you would please consider subscribing to the channel. All you will do is get notification for all live shows that are coming up, and it just means you will help us build the channel here on Ali Beg ABTV. Thank you so much for watching. I really hope you enjoyed today's review show, and I will see you throughout the summer for plenty more live programs here on Ali Beg ABTV. I'll see you again very soon. Bye for now.